Nobody talks about what happens to your nervous system when the money actually does come in. The voiceover industry loves to talk about the hustle, but not many people talk about what you do when it pays off and why that can be really disorienting. Welcome to Get Messy, the mindset space for creatives who want to build sustainable, successful careers without losing their sanity. I'm Maddie, professional performer of over a decade. I'm currently in grad school to become a therapist, and I'm the friend who's not afraid to dig deep, and I will never BS you about what it takes to actually stay in the game. Olivia Sarafina Washington is back and we're picking up right where we left off, except this time we're talking about money, specifically the kind of money conversation that I feel like a lot of people in the voiceover industry want to have, but don't want to have. I mean, when I go to a lot of different casting director workshops or take different classes, I feel like if we're ever asked to go around and talk about goals, a lot of people have a goal of one day being able to make either their entire income or part of their income from voiceover. But I feel like we don't really get into the nitty gritty of what that actually looks like. So there's like this romanticized vision of it, but it's like, what does that actually mean? So in this part 2 episode with Olivia, we get into how unpredictable VO income really is. Oh, it is so unpredictable. What it feels like to land a big booking early and then watch things slow down, and how your upbringing and money education, or lack of it, shapes the way you handle financial highs and lows. We talk about the social pressure that comes with sudden abundance, why qualifying for SAG health insurance can feel like a finish line that just keeps moving, and what it actually looks like to rebuild after a slow season. We also debunk the myth that you need expensive gear to get started in voiceover and share some honest thoughts on when it's actually worth upgrading your equipment. Mind you, this episode was recorded back in December, and I feel like a lot of the content that we talk about is still the same and we still stand by it. But if there's something that we say, they're like, huh, that's a little bit weird. When did this happen? It happened in December 2025, which is crazy. But without further ado, let's dive into all things voiceover and money. Oh, Olivia, this is fun. I adore you. We're going to talk about money, which I think more people should talk about money. I think everyone is curious and wants to know, but then like doesn't want to ask because money could be emotional. You and I are lucky on our lucky train today. We've been able to both do something that a lot of people want to do, which is make a full-time income in voiceover. In a lot of the classes that I have taken, when people ask at the beginning of the class, like, what would your ultimate goal be? Like, that is 80% of the time one of the goals of like, I hope one day this is my main thing. And you and I have successfully been able to do that, which is wild. Like, it is wild when I think about how competitive this industry could be and how we've been lucky enough to get yeses enough to actually have like sustainable income. Since most people, that is something that they really, really want, is to one day be financially stable because of voiceover being their main income. What do you think one of the biggest misconceptions people have about making it financially in voiceover?
Oh, biggest misconceptions? Oh, that it may be for forever? Like, maybe that was my biggest misconception. I thought that because, unfortunately, like you said, we've been really lucky, but I hit it really big really soon. Like right in 2020, Duncan changed my life, and all of a sudden I had all this money. It's like, oh, okay, well, this is good. And it just kept going for like 4 years. So yeah, I just thought it would last forever. And it doesn't. Even though my agent said it wouldn't, Eileen said, hey, save that money. And I said, please, girl. Do you know me? I'm the money machine.
Yes. I think what I thought too is that, okay, even if it's not on the exact same level as when it's like the highest it's been, it'll be somewhat sustainable because I've made enough connections or I know enough for, and like what we know is that there's so much shit out of our control. I was just talking to another voiceover actress, Taylor Meskimen, who is also at DPN, and her and I haven't talked in a couple of years. And I was like, it kind of feels like a miracle every time you book a job when you realize how many people probably went out for that job and how many voices they were like eliminating to get it down to like when you get in a veil or a callback, it's kind of a fucking miracle because there's so much that had to go into getting to that point that you don't even see. Similarly to you, like my first year, it wasn't like lights out compared to what it became eventually, but it was the most money I'd ever made in my entire life. And so for me, I was like, okay, what's happening here? And I was still nannying at the time. I was still doing like all my other side hustles. And then it got to the point where I was like, oh, I don't need to survive. And not only survive, thrive, I don't need to. So it was like first year I made a certain amount. Next year I doubled that. Next year, I doubled that. Next year was like on the same par. COVID happened. 2020 was okay. 2021 was okay, where I'm like sustainably living still. Like it wasn't as great as the good years, but I was like chilling. I was like, okay, surviving and still thriving, able to like take a trip and invest in things you want. 2022 happened. And I was like, oh shit. I always felt it like couldn't go beyond a certain level, like lower. And then it happened. And I didn't make my SAG health insurance, which SAG health insurance, it's like what, $29,000 to qualify. So if you're not making that and you're not doing non-union work or doing other stuff, you're not surviving. Like you can't pay your bills.
You can't survive off that.
And it was shocking. I was like, what happened? Can I do this anymore? Like, did something change that like I didn't realize it changed? And I talked to my agent Vince and he was like, Maddie, even the $1 million clients, this is part of the game. Like the highs and the lows, like everyone has a slump. Everybody has a slump. It is not about if it will happen, it will. It's about what you choose to do while you're down there to like get yourself back out of it, which is precisely why he suggested I go to Carol Kimball. Went to Carol Kimball. And to your point that we just talked about in our last episode about how literally in 2 minutes you can get a phone call and it could change the trajectory of the rest of your year. It could change the trajectory of your life. Like voiceover has that level of power and possibility. That's what happened. Then I booked for Comcast and I worked for them for 2.5 years. And then now I'm back in like another slow season that just ended in September. So it's not that slow, but it feels slow. I'm like, that feels like forever ago. Now I have the resilience to know that it can go up and down like this. I've been up and I've been down and I've been up again. So like I felt the whole thing, but like it is hard. I'm in it right now where I'm like, okay, that wasn't that long ago of like working very consistently, but you have to work so fucking hard to like keep your mindset to not be like, what if I never book another job again? Which is crazy, but like,
Please. I've literally been like on the floor crying. Like I think it needed to happen. Everyone's journey is so different and their upbringing, their lifestyle desires. I grew up fairly wealthy. My parents were really wealthy, but similarly, my parents are artists. My dad was a photographer, really successful celebrity photographer, and he would be making like hundreds and hundreds of thousands. Me and my brother went to private school. Anything we want, we had multiple nannies, housekeeper, beautiful, like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 square foot home. I don't remember the exact specs. Finished basement, movie theater. Like I grew up knowing a life of high end things. And that's something that I've always been accustomed to. But in 2008, their business started to go down because it was the recession. And the first thing to go is like superfluous artistry. You know, why hire this really expensive photographer when we can find like a kid to do it for less? Like film was going out of style, digital's end, and there was just period. And like they always found a way. I finished in private school and like did college and everything. But since then, things definitely just weren't the same. So when I was in New York nannying, in 2019 when I moved back, before I booked SoFi, but even when I booked SoFi at the top of that year, I was like struggling financially. I was nannying, but I wasn't nannying too much because I had to be available for VO and do auditions. And my rent at the time was $630. And there were some months that I couldn't even afford that because my nannying was so like $40 a day because I'd only work 2 or 3 hours or something. I couldn't commit to taking care of a child when at any time I could possibly have an audition or work. So I just was struggling a lot. And like family really helped me, like not my parents, but like extended family. And my mentor, Mr. Thomas in New York, who was also my mom's mentor, rest his soul. He like literally was just fabulous, fantastic man. But there's been so many ups and downs financially in my life that it felt like even when I booked SoFi, because they paid out like net 90 or net 100, whatever. So I wasn't getting the money when I needed it. It really wasn't until 2020 when I booked Duncan that I felt some sense of financial security. And I feel that my nervous system, while getting all this money, when I look back, probably just wasn't prepared for it. I think that, oh, I'm going to cry. But I think that it was such a quick timeline shift or quantum leap. And spiritually, I just was not prepared for that amount of money. It came with so many blessings, like helping out my family, but it came with so many other like responsibilities. And in this world where now I'm feeling like certain friends are taking advantage of it because I do love to give. I am really generous. I love treating my friends to dinners, but now I'm expected to, or we don't have to pay Olivia back for this because she doesn't need it. There was a time where once I started making some money and had a studio, in 2021, I like wrote on my whiteboards what I want to make, my dreams and visions, what I've made so far, what I've put into savings. And unfortunately, when I had friends over, I wasn't just like erasing it. So a lot of people who were new friends were seeing how much money I really was making. And at the time, it was one of those like $300,000 years. And I was saying like savings 80,000, this blah, blah, like numbers that truly a year prior were unfathomable to even have in savings. It was an insane amount of money for a 20 whatever year old. So those friends, no longer friends, but would feel like, well, we don't need to pay back Olivia, or we don't, she's going to treat us at dinner, or we get to dinner and we're all eating and everyone's like, well, I don't have a card that can pay for this. So we'll just pay you back. And then it just never would happen. And gosh, the anxiety, more money, more problems, as the notorious B.I.G. once said.
You said it. I want you to keep going, Olivia, because I just really appreciate your vulnerability of what you're sharing. 'Cause money is emotional. And I think like everyone has in a different way, like their thing with it. And I think depending on how they've worked on it, like you said, the energetics of money, like that's something that more and more people should talk about because there is such an energy exchange with us and money, us and other people and money. Even what you said is like there's a different responsibility for saving and investing and like understanding like what you should do when you start making a different level of wealth. And I actually think it's really difficult too sometimes with certain friendships. Like to me, I love that we're even able to have this conversation because sometimes I feel like there's not a weirdness around it or around numbers. Because again, the year that I made 2022 was like in VO $15,000. And between other hustles, I was hustling my ass off to try to make other money. That year total, I made like $44,000. Again, I have a partner, not survivable amount of money. And then the next year, to your point, it was like mid six figures with Comcast. So it's such a shock. Your nervous system at first is like, oh, thank God. Thank God. Like I could breathe. And then it's like, oh my God, I wasn't prepared.
No. I think that also it's not my parents' fault, but my dad grew up very impoverished. And my mom grew up like overseas with her father and mother, who my grandfather was served in the military, like he was Air Force, and she had other siblings and they grew up very well and well off. But I just think that money education is just not something that has been in my family. So when it came to making a lot of money, specifically starting with my parents, they weren't investing. They weren't saving. They're just like, oh, let's get the bigger house. Let's get more. And I've definitely seen that in myself. I'm like, I spoke about this on our first episode, but $5,350 a month, my huge penthouse apartment in New York, because I felt like, oh, I have all this money that I'm making from Dunkin'. I need to get the biggest, the best. I could have been fine with a $2,800 apartment. 3,000 at the most. I did not need to make that huge jump from spending 1,650 on a studio to spending 5,350. Even the guy that toured me around, the real estate agent, was like, oh, you're making a really big jump. I was like, yeah, but I got it. Those are little tweaks. But I'm glad I've tasted the summit and had some tastes of what that feels like when you have to pay your rent in like two separate payments because your Zelle limit is like 5,000 a day. So just insanity. But yeah, your nervous system, the energy. I want to get back to what you were saying with that. I feel that when you are not prepared for a certain amount of abundance, your body and your energy will do everything it can to almost get rid of it. It looks like you're just having fun and spending it, but it's more of like, I don't know what to do with this amount, so I must get it away from me. I'm not ready for it. I needed so deeply to go through that where I was making an insane amount of money for a single person. And at the end of the year, you're looking like, wait, where did all that money go? And you're seeing all your statements and you're looking around at clothes with tags still on them and bags of Fashion Nova last minute ordered stuff, thousands of dollars worth of things that didn't end up fitting, but you never returned it. So it's just sitting around you and you're like, these are thousands of dollars just like around me that I have nothing I can do with. It's insane. That could have been a vacation. That could have helped a family member, but my nervous system was so not ready. I needed these really slow months. And we kind of talked about it when we FaceTimed and Zoomed a couple weeks ago, but I needed that because now My nervous system has experienced the lowest of lows, making very, very little, almost not surviving, taking out a ton of loans. And the ups and downs have taught me, given me the tools, forced me into the education of money that now when I do hit my millions and I am making that much, that it won't be blown like the NBA and NFL players in a year. Because, they get that money and they blow it. Like that's what happens. Or even if you win the lottery, people blow it because you're not prepared. If I won the lottery, I'm ready. I got my investment account. I got the list of people I'm sending it to. I got a lawyer up. Like I feel so much more capable, prepared, and ready at my young age of 30 to now receive the abundance that was so ready to be given to me, but I just wasn't in a place to thrive in that and respect it. Because you have to respect money. Money has to feel safe with you. It has to trust you. And I don't think it could do that at the time. But now it can. So come to me.
Now you're like, I'm
I'm
ready. No, I
ready.
love that, Olivia, because I think in your kind of like summit and then valley, and then I was like, okay, I had the summit, I had the valley, I had the next summit. And now I'm like, I'm chilling. I'm not in a valley yet. That's because when I was at my next summit, to your education piece, like my parents, they'd be like, get a retirement account. And I'd be like, okay, I knew it was important, but not really. It was something I should do. But like, did I max it out every year? No, I was half doing shit. And I've seen my parents. I grew up upper middle class. I saw them have great success, have a very difficult time, and come back from it and have to change their strategies, which is great. And I'm very proud of them because it was rough. I'm thinking of a specific conversation with my dad, him and I had together when I was, 18 or 19 years old in the thick of it and like just seeing the pain of like him not knowing what to do and him just like clawing his way out of it. And they did. And now they're a better system of risk and stable. They've balanced that out. My dad is the risk taker and my mom is like now too stable sometimes where she wants to like hoard it. And that's honestly, Olivia. So what I did is my second summit, I invested in with a finance coach. Her name's Stephanie Zenos. She's a podcast that I did with her that I'll link. She's phenomenal. And it was ain't cheap, but god damn, did I learn so much about saving and investing and money mindset and all of these things. It's a work in progress every day. We're talking about the energy of money where if I feel scared, if I feel desperate, I can get into that a little bit too, where I was like, okay, I'll just keep so much of it in savings because I don't want to freak out when I'm doing an audition. I need to be in that space of like freedom and flowing and like making bold choices. But I'm also like, from my education, I know you can make more money if you invest it too. There's obviously like a risk of losing it. So trying to just balance all of it and balance what does abundance feel like. And women are so powerful when we're wealthy. We give back more. We're better investors than men typically because we're not usually making like emotional decisions. We're like, set it and forget it, like keep it going. And so this is such an important conversation to have. I think most people think it doesn't matter. I just want to get there. I just want to get there. Whatever happens once I get there, like it'll be okay. And I think you and I and a lot of people, it's just not as talked about, are living proof that like it is more complex than that. And because voiceover is so solitary, I call voiceover like a quiet success because our face is not there. People aren't seeing a commercial and instantly being like, oh, it's Olivia. They might know because you posted it on your Instagram and then they're like, oh my God, it's Olivia's Hershey's commercial. But like they don't know that for sure. So I think VO is a much quieter success. It's a much quieter process, like when you're doing it, because you're typically alone for 90% of it until you're at your job. So some people, besides your family, who even know what you're going through financially is like your agents. It was like my husband, my parents, my agents, like that's it.
Yeah. And I'd add for me, my accountant, but he doesn't fully even understand the business though. I do have to teach him a lot about the business, but he does see my money. And I will say with my accountant, he is the one professional that I'm working with who I cry in almost every meeting we have. And not because I'm like, oh my God, but more of just those growing pains because he started with me after some of my bigger successes. So I was in a slower past couple of years. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I used to be rich. But then he'll see like a crazy $50,000 month and be like, oh, yeah, you weren't lying. And I'm like, yeah. And he'll be like, I see a trend now. In November, you usually make a crazy amount of money and then it's really slow on this. And so it's cool to talk to him about it. But he said this in my last meeting with him. He was like, Olivia, just remember, like, mind you, we're the same age. But he was like, just remember, you're really young. everything could crash and burn right now, and you could still build it over. You could still start over. You have so much life to live. And I just started like tearing up. I'm like, thank you. What I also love about him is he doesn't really care when I cry. Like, he's not like, are you okay? He just sees me bawling and he's like, so anyway, so for our next meeting, and I freaking love it. I freaking love it.
He's like, he's like, continue, like, carry on. Yeah. And you know what, Olivia? Because even in the workshop that I did with Steph Zenos, it was all women, women of all ages. And it was so cool to see all of us like learning from each other, growing from each other, sharing, being so vulnerable about numbers or the things we want in life and like how we can help each other, like configure things to get there. And what is super cool is I've seen women much, much older than me in that group. And it's like, okay, yeah, you didn't do XYZ when you were 30, but like at least you're here today, not tomorrow.
Best day to start was yesterday. The second best, today.
Today. Welcome to the party. I also think too, Olivia, I mean, we could talk about money forever and I'd love to. I think VO, what's interesting is anything in the entertainment industry, you have to make an investment in yourself as you're getting started. VO is an interesting one because when I started VO, I didn't have to make any investment. I was going into DPN to do my auditions. I was going into whatever studio to work. No one told me to buy equipment because no one needed it back then. So I think now, sometimes when I hear newer people come into the industry, there's all this pressure of like how much to invest in their demo reel, how much to invest in classes and casting director workshops, how much to invest in equipment. What is your take on the types of investments you should make, maybe let's say the beginning, and then at like year 3, 4, 5, like when you're kind of like in the zone?
Now it's like definitely sound interface, microphone. My microphone is $99. My sound interface is a Focusrite Scarlett and it's like $120 right now. My headphones are probably the cheapest headphones, not build. They're good headphones, but they weren't expensive. And an XLR cable. I'm hoping that most people that want to start in VO have a computer. So the only other thing would be like maybe a dongle because some computers don't accept USB. They only have the USB-C plug. And then of course the pop filter, my dirty, dirty pop filter that I put like my lips on sometimes. But this is the same mic I started with. I just changed it out for the same brand again. I had to get a new one like a couple months ago, but for $99 for a mic, and I don't know, I guess the total is maybe less than $300, I was able to have a voiceover career. I did have padding in the closet when I first had a closet versus a booth that I have now, but padding, big blankets, clothes. I sometimes feel like the closets that I was in that was tight with clothes sometimes sounded better than like even my booth.
Isn't that wild when that happens sometimes? Like,
Yeah, no, it dampens it out. It's so good.
I love that you said that, Olivia, because I think I've been a little insecure sometimes to talk about it because I had so many people at DPN who were like, here's my $30,000 booth. And I was like, holy shit. And it was so many people, so many fancy people. Mind you, some of them have been doing this for decades. So I'm like, that kind of makes sense. But up until this past year, literally my stand is probably $50. I was using a Rode NG2 shotgun mic, which was like $250. I have my Scarlett Focusrite, which is like $120. I have my XLR cable. But yeah, to your point, it's like $500 worth of equipment. And I threw big blankets on my mother-in-law's closet floor and had her clothes. And I had engineers be like, this is one of the best booths I've ever heard. And I'm like thinking, if I took a picture of this right now, they would die. They would, but it's because it was like there was no outside walls. It was like in the house. So it was like perfect. We had great internet. You need good internet for Source Connect and all that stuff. But like that's not that expensive either. So like you said, to have a sustainable, successful voiceover career, but besides the Source Connect $35 a month
Right.
fee,
Which I was told by a casting director that you shouldn't get until you're really booking.
100% agree. I didn't have it until I was working.
Until it was needed. Until
Until it
someone
was
said, you need
needed.
to have Source Connect for tomorrow. And I said, okay, let me watch every video.
And then you're like 5 hours later, you're like, God damn it, with like the lock key, whatever. But yeah, I think that's a misconception. Some people, not to like the best of the best right away, but they go so big so fast. Like I just, because one of my engineers a year into Xfinity was like, I think you should get a Sennheiser MKH 416, which is $1,000 microphone. I bought it. It is really nice, I will say. I really like it. That's the biggest equipment purchase I've ever made in my life. And it's $1,000 microphone. If you Google it, it'll pop right up. This is what the engineer said. He's like, I think it's going to make your voice sparkly. And I was like, I want Sparkly. He sold it to me. It's a shotgun directional mic. But that's the thing, Olivia, that I've been doing this for 10 years. I made that investment in year 9 of my career. And otherwise, it was $500 worth of equipment, probably at whatever year I was required, whatever COVID happened. And I was good. I was chilling.
Yeah, I'm telling people I like this $99 mic, the MXL 990.
And she sound good.
I've been using this for my whole career. I definitely do want to upgrade and invest, but it just hasn't been necessary yet. So I haven't, but maybe for my Christmas present, I'll get that or just go to some places and test some things out.
I could talk to you forever, but even in just 30 minutes, this little tidbit, I would need to hear this if I was like in VO. I wanted to hear it. I feel like I learned from you.
I would love people to ask questions because especially when it comes to money, I could really talk for forever. Yeah. Real quick, I know you were saying what you do in your downtimes or what to do. I did want to speak to that. I think the downtimes, and we spoke about it on our Zoom meeting, but the downtimes are when the artistic creativity comes back. I think that I would have just been kind of flatlining with my Dunkin' money and like not thinking of doing anything else bigger because why? If you're making like hefty 6 figures, like why? Like life is good. I think it's now been in this more of a slower time period that I've even wanted to do podcasting or wanted to use my other artistic abilities, sign with other agents, do more, be seen, the visibility, all of it. It has come out of the slower months and it forces you to get a little craftier, creative and on it. Like it challenges your brain and your energy to do more than just, America runs on Ducket and like be like, all right, back to bed.
Nice day's work. Great job. No, I love that, Olivia, because I think my mom used to always say this when I was younger in my 20s, when I'd kind of start freaking out if I got a little slow. And she's like, the slow times are there for a reason too. Like, how can you utilize that you have more energy, you have more time? And I know as an adult, I was like the second that I found out that Comcast, we were no longer going to be working together. There's at first like, oh, that sucks. But there was also that part of me that was like, okay, there's an opportunity here. And I think you and I were talking. I was like, once I kind of like let the grief wash over me and like let it dissipate, I was like, wow, I feel more creative than I have in years. I feel more excited and alive. There's a different like ease and quietness within myself to like hear more clarity on like what it is you do want to work on. So I think that that's such a beautiful reminder that sometimes the quiet times are like there to rejuvenate the inner creative spirit, to like build and figure out what you want to build next and have the energy and the time to do it.
It's divine. It's divine to be able to find new ways to spread and share light. And I think that just sitting in your booth, just doing like a really hefty, as you call it, like the fat cat kind of jobs, your brain obviously wants the easiest way forward. And if it's given everything on a silver platter, like it's not going to want to be like doing anything more. And I think like, I don't know, the podcasting is great. It's a way to share. It's a way to connect with more community. And that's my goal, at least. I really want to connect with more people and have a bigger community, see some things from different people's perspectives. Very cool. Very cool stuff.
You're the real hero if you've made it this far. Thanks so much for hanging out today, and check out the show notes for any resources or cool info mentioned in today's episode, or places to follow along if you want to hang out some more. I'm rooting for you today and always. Stay messy.